Welcome to another edition of Through the Fire and the SBN Small Business Network podcast. I am your host, Brian Wickline, and today I'm joined by my ex-college professor from UNOH, Phil Gunder. How you doing today, Phil?
I'm doing good, bud. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Phil, I got a lot of backstories with this guy, man. Yeah, pretty funny stories here, but so why don't you tell us, who is Phil Gunder?
How long do we have? No, I'm just kidding. My story is a little bit of a unique one, how I kind of ended up in, the position of being a full-time professor, especially at a place like UNOH, which obviously we can get into the uniqueness of what we do at UNOH and how we do it, which I know you're pretty much aware of, but I'm originally from the area. I went to high school and I grew up in Delphus, Ohio, which is close and familiar to Northwest Ohio. And my ultimate goal always was, I wanted to be a teacher. My dad was a teacher. I remember to this day I'm one of seven, second youngest of seven, so my siblings are all older than me. My dad just turned 81, so gives you a perspective of the age range. So when I was a little kid, I always remember my dad being in the living room on Thursday nights watching Thursday night football. And he would have people come over. And, I was little, I didn't always know who they were. And then later found out they were ex-students of his that would come back and, visit him from college or visit him when they were on breaks or visit them when they were in the professional world. And it really kind of pointed me to the direction of the amount of impact that he had on people's lives. And it was always something that I kind of like sought after and wanted to do. Not necessarily knowing exactly what that even meant, but I just, being in that kind of position of having impact on people's lives was always something that I wanted. He was also a coach. So the teacher coach direction was always what I wanted. So I kind of had to figure out what that really truly meant. And, I ended up at the University of Findlay, played football there for 4 years, stayed for 2 years after to get my graduate degree, thinking that, athletic directing was maybe a direction, and did that for 2 years and realized that's really not what I wanted to do, which was fine. So I kind of like reverted back to teaching. My first start with that was at a middle school in Findlay and teaching U.S. history. So a lot of things that I do today in my classroom stem from my student teaching experience, which was in a high school, and my first real true education teaching experience, which was teaching American history to 12 and 13-year-olds, which if you ever interact with that age group, learning about the Constitution, amendments, American history isn't really high on their list of things they want to do. So I had to get really creative of making it seem like something they wanted to learn about, which was a challenge, just like anyone that you talk to that's an educator, depending upon the age group. But keeping them entertained, keeping them involved, even when you were a student, and my students still today that are 18, 19, 20 years old, or sometimes older, like that's still kind of a thing. But at the back of all of that was always coaching. That never went away. I've coached at some level pretty much. I was coaching Little League Baseball when I was in junior high, doing kids camps in high school and loving every minute of it. I've coached multiple different levels of football. I've coached my children. I have a 16-year-old, a soon-to-be 13, and an 11-year-old. I've coached them in everything, every step of the way. I've coached soccer. I've coached basketball. I've coached, little t-ball. So like I always put like the coaching as part of like who I am, because coaching and teaching kind of go hand in hand in a lot of ways. And anyone that that kind of does both, including yourself, like this, like it's all the same. Like
yeah,
at the surface level, it's the same. And maybe when you dive deep a little bit, it might be a little bit different. But, that impact is what I've always wanted. I can remember doing like a personality, test. I remember doing it in high school, match your personality, kind of the career that you want to do. even doing it in college, even doing it when I worked at the University of Findlay in their career services department, which was kind of like my start to higher education world. And mine always comes back to empathetic type directions. So looking at others before myself, I get, my pleasure or my enthusiasm, my what makes me tick comes from interacting and making people's lives better. It's always funny when you do the career thing. I think psychiatrist is like my number one position, which there's a lot of that happens in education, which is kind of funny. But at the end of the day, those sort of things shape who I am. I always tell my students, when you find what you love, it makes you a better person, makes you a better spouse, makes you a better parent. And what I do at UNOH currently makes me a better husband, makes me a better dad, makes me better everything, which I think is kind of like the trick that most people are trying to kind of fit that mold into. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how I got here, and what kind of makes me tick. So
Awesome. So what kind of led you from Findlay to UNOH?
It's a funny story. I graduated. So like University of Findlay is very meaningful to me. So not only did I play football there, which anyone that's a college athlete, when you play a sport in college, it's significant. A lot of time, a lot of effort. I was an offensive lineman, so a lot of other people's success were dependent upon my success, but no one ever really paid attention to what was happening with the offensive linemen. So like unique situation. I also met my wife in college, so that's pretty significant. Three of my best friends that I interact with the most to this day were from the University of Findlay in my time there. So when I had the opportunity to work there after so I hurt my leg really bad playing a church league basketball tournament game, which kind of led to me not teaching in the middle school that I was at because I couldn't basically do anything. I couldn't walk, I couldn't drive, I couldn't, function as a human almost for about 3 years. But it also opened up the door to me to get into the University of Findlay. So when I started there in their career services, it kind of opened up that opportunity to get back into the education world that I was in. So super impactful, super meaningful. We did some unbelievable things. We took an office that basically was 2 people with an administrative assistant and turned it into, through grants and other things, turned it into an office of 8. Basically took a very basic operation and turned it into very elaborate type events, from job fairs to, everything that you could imagine. And it was super, super fun as well. But things change and opportunities come at weird times that you can never wrap your head around. And they went through some significant budget cuts would have been the summer of 2015. And because of that, I actually lost my position at the University of Findlay, which was super devastating for me. I mean, or maybe 2015, 2016, either way, but like heartbroken is basically the way I can explain it. You're sitting in your office thinking you were an instrumental part of a university that was very meaningful to you. And then next thing you know, someone comes in and says, unfortunately, we have to cut your position, due to budgetary reasons, which, if anyone's ever gotten riffed or whatever you want to call it, or let go because of things out of your control, I mean, it's not much fun. Add on top of that I felt like it was more because of my ties to the University of Findlay. So I felt a little betrayed at the same token. So all those things are super hard, but actually those things, allowed me to even look at the UNOH or University of Northwestern Ohio as an option. So, that happened. 6 months later, I get randomly reached out by, now my colleague, Julia Etzkorn, who you had in class, who's a second cousin of mine. And, we're throwing around ideas and talking about things. And, she randomly says, hey, would you know of anybody that would like to teach in our sport management program? Another full-time professor we had just resigned. And I'm like, I would be interested. And funny enough, like I was familiar with UNOH. My uncle was an athletic director, employed for a long period of time at UNOH. I used to take visits there. to check out the diesel mechanic type things, but never like thought of it as a real legitimate opportunity. So kind of like stumbled across it, went to go visit, and was blown away. Like I couldn't even wrap my head around the changes that I had gone through since the last time I was there, probably 20 years ago. Took it as an opportunity again to put myself in a situation that kind of combined a couple things that I really loved, which was the education piece and higher education. And, I jumped on it, and it's, been a blast. Honestly, this is starting my 8th academic year, and I couldn't even wrap my head around it being a better situation, not just for me, for my family, but, some of the passions that I really am passionate about, which is, making a difference, being impactful. Sports has been a big part of my life. I teach sports management, which obviously that's the topic of our conversation, all day, every day, which can you get any better than that? So pretty unique way to get there. But at the same tokens, I'm super, appreciative of, the steps and the people that were involved and, how it came to fruition, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy how one door closes and another one opens.
And honestly, I went through some pretty big monumental shifts when I, injured my leg playing basketball was big, right? Like changed a lot for me. Opened the door though, right?
Yeah.
Like I would have never gotten into higher ed if it wasn't for that. I get, my position taken away because of budgetary reasons, super impactful, but it would have never, without that, I would have never looked at this opportunity as something legit. So I think the moral of the story is, life's going to throw you some curveballs.
So I said, there's a lot of pain that people don't understand. A lot of pain right before the next door opens.
Correct.
So back.
Exactly. So it almost tests you, right? Whatever you want to, believe. And, I'm never here to judge anyone for what they believe. But I'm a big believer that things happen for a reason, however you want to spin that. And when you go through difficult times, it's like one of those tests to see if you can handle it and what you do next. And those that handle it the right way and do what they're supposed to, I feel like almost come out, better at the end. So those two big things in my life really kind of tested me and pushed me and almost said, what are you going to do now? My upbringing and things that kind of created me through, football and athletics and some of those things kind of, shaped me to go through, some of those hard, difficult times to come out better at the end. So.
Yeah, I agree. Sports definitely helps with that, making you tougher.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not always a physical thing either. You know what I mean? It's that,
the mental toughness part.
Yeah, delayed gratification, excuse me. What you go through is going to benefit you at the end at some point. My big thing is, a big believer in the law of value. And to me, the law of value is if you put forth so much value to people in whatever situation it is, at some point in time, you're going to get it back. It might not be now, might not be in a year, might not be in 5 years, but at some point in time, the universe is going to say, you know what, you've done enough good things. Here you go. This is what you deserve. And when I was coaching football, religiously and a little bit more stricter than I am now, but our belief was if you do the right things over and over again, consistently, right? And everyone wants to win now. Everyone wants the instant gratification. Everyone wants to post on Instagram how cool everything looks, right? But no one wants to talk about the crap they go through to get there. But if you do those enough, if you keep stacking those things over and over again, then eventually you're going to win, right? Eventually it's going to just take care of itself. Eventually you're going to build a program. Eventually you're going to get that promotion. Eventually you're going to fill in the blank. But you have to do those things consistently or else, there's no way of veering around, a step to get there. And that's a challenge sometimes for people.
Yeah. So what are some of the challenges you face as a professor?
As a professor?
Yeah.
There's a lot that I can't control. If you have a class with me 3 days a week, I get to interact with you face to face for 4 hours. And then you leave and everything else involved in your life is full frontal, you know what I mean? Right in your face. So my number one challenge is I better be, on it in those 4 hours that I have with you a week, right? Because I don't know what the math is. I can't do it on the top of my head, but it's, not a very good percentage of time that I get to be with you. And I hope you can attest that, what the book says and what the PowerPoint say and what, the topics are, that's part of it. But like, that's not it to me. You know what I mean? Like, I want it to be more. I want it to be more than just, let's talk about the history of sport, or let's talk about sport promotion and ticket sales. Like, that's an aspect of what we got to do. But like, I always joke and say, like, I want to be a life changer. That's like what I am. That's what I want to be. I want to be something involved in your life that I help change for the better. So a challenge is like, how do I do that in such a short amount of time that I have in front of you? So, I mean, some people might think I'm crazy, but it's the reason why I follow people on, social media channels. It's the reason why, we do some of the extracurricular type things that are not required, right? And hopefully you'll ask me about those because they are meaningful. But that's why I do, and that's why we do in our program almost everything that we do, because I want it to be more than that. And the main driver to that is when I talk to people that made it in the sports world, or make it in the sport industry, or have full-time jobs or full-time ADs. Or I had a conversation this morning with Jacob Hanslick, who's a ticket sales rep for the Cincinnati Reds. All they ever want to talk about is the other stuff, right? That's all they want to. They don't want to know. Like a certain GPA, those sort of things are almost expected. It's about what else have you done. So like, how dare I stand in front of these kids or people, because they're not all kids, but how dare I stand in front of them for 4 hours and try to say what we're talking about on this PowerPoint or in this textbook is the most meaningful thing in these 4 hours? Because it's not. It's a step. It's a part of it. But like, all the other stuff truly matters. Like, when you go have an interview, they're going to say, tell me about the time you did this. It's not going to be, tell me the time you did assignment at the end of the chapter. They never ask that.
No.
They want to know about the other stuff. So like, my challenge is, how do I, in those 4 hours, get that across to them, knowing that once they leave and go to their dorm or go to their house or apartment or back home or wherever, they got a lot of other stuff thrown at them that I can't control, which is, it can be super challenging at times. Yeah.
Well, I can attest that you add a lot of value to people's lives.
Well, I'm trying really hard, which may attest to the gray hair or the lack of hair. But
so, what is one piece of advice you would give other teachers who are having problems with students on their phones?
Oh my goodness gracious!
Because you have a very good method that a lot of people never thought of.
And it's funny because it's really like, it's not like a groundbreaking idea, you know what I mean? And I actually got it. I got the idea. So in our program, you have to do a mandatory internship in order to graduate. And when I first got to UNOH, our process to manage those was a little loose. So I made some adjustments. And in those adjustments, I have a midterm and a final evaluation, which is pretty normal. So the student, like yourself, you have to sit down with whoever your supervisor is for your internship. And halfway through, you do an evaluation with them to say, how am I doing? What do I need to improve on? So on and so forth. And I remember, I think first or second year, so this definitely before COVID, which I feel like everything in education was it before COVID or was it after COVID? Like everything was about that. But it was definitely before. So probably 2018-ish. I kept seeing the same things over and over again, which was from these evaluations, the employer saying that, kids were on their phone, couldn't find a way to get them off their phone. Students need to know when it is appropriate to be off their phone. Just so many times a cell phone was the driver of an issue. So I'm not the smartest person in the world, but like I see a problem and I'm like, okay, let's fix it. So the only way that I know how to solve something in that nature is to take it away. So it go back to my coaching, right?
Yeah.
I coach offensive line. We always used to do a thing in the shoots. Anyone that's played offensive line knows what I'm referring to, but picture like a tunnel, and it helps keep the offensive lineman lower because the low person wins, right? You're trying to push somebody where they don't want to go, and you can't do it standing up. You got to do it kind of bent over. Same in wrestling, right? You got to, there's an approach to that low man and that, Wrestling and offensive line play and defensive line play go hand in hand. If you've never known that before, but it's super similar. We just have way more equipment on than you do. So there's some tricks to the trade regarding that. And I can't grab and pull sometimes without being penalized. Anyway, so my idea was I got to find a way to get rid of these stupid things, because I don't necessarily have a problem with them because I'm on my phone as much as they are. But again, how dare I tell them it's okay to use it in my classroom, but when you go into the real world, you can't use them. So the only thing I have to offer is, so the policy is pretty simple, right? Every class, if you turn your phone in at the front of the classroom and turn it off so it doesn't make the noise, if you do that every time you come to class, at the end of the quarter, I'll give you bonus points. So it's the only thing that I have to offer to entice. And just like being a parent, just like being a manager, when your employee, when your kid, when your player, when your student has something on the line, it's amazing what they'll do. So like as a coach, I'm like, hey man, left guard, and that linebacker blitzes, you're going to have to stick your face mask right in their chest. And if they run over you, they run over you. Like, good luck telling a 15-year-old kid that doesn't even want to play offensive line that's what they have to do. Right. But if I have something like playing time, recognition, all league, all state, scholarship. Oh, you have all these things that kind of entice them. My kids all the time, right? Like, you want to be on the Oculus? That's great, but you got to do something to earn that. I'm not just giving you anything. So like, you want bonus points at the end of the quarter? Because everyone does, as well as I do. I post the same picture, right? Like it's a religious thing and people expect it. That's great. You want bonus points and you got to do something in return. So you turn that phone in at the end of the quarter and it's amazing, Ryan. I've been doing it for how long? I mean, I did it in your classes. So how long ago was that? 5 years ago?
Yeah. Somewhere around there. Well, it's crazy because you were the only one who offered that. And like, I was never on my phone anyways, because I grew up at a different age.
Yeah, sure.
But you go to them other classes and them kids are just on their phone playing games and not paying attention. I'm like, what the heck's going on here?
I know, it's pretty crazy, honestly. And if you think, you're paying for this and that's what you want out of it. So like in my rational head, I'm like, this makes no sense. But this generation, however you want to call it, like it doesn't always work that way to try to explain it. So like, you have to give them something to entice a result, right? I mean, to get them to do what I want, that I know is what they should do, I can't just say do it.
Yeah.
Or else they're going to ask why. They're going to be like, I don't think so. That's hard. That's too many options out there, right? We lived in a different world. I didn't have an option, right? I didn't have a choice. Now there's thousands of choices. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was the best solution. People kind of maybe look at me funny or maybe listen to this and be like, I can't believe he did that. But
if it's working, you got to do something, because I think even at the high school level, I come across kids that are failing in school, and it's got to be because they're not paying attention.
I mean,
and they're on their phones.
If you pay attention to the news, which can be a whole nother gamut and maybe a topic of conversation, but the Ohio governor is about ready to make a law that says no phones in high schools. So obviously it's something that's being talked about.
Yeah.
Now you could also challenge and say, is what you're doing in front of the classroom, you're competing against that phone. So are you doing a good enough job? I mean, that could be another topic of conversation if you'd like. But for me, I don't know. My easy answer was I'm going to find a way to get it away from them. And it's actually, it's a liberating process, to be honest. To see their faces when they first hear it, they're like, whoa, they're shocked.
I've seen it. Yeah. I've seen some of their faces. Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, it's amazing that they think I'm lying. They think I'm full of it. And I'm like, you guys might actually enjoy it. Like, let's spend 40 minutes and just turn your phone in there. Like, I just went to Hocking Hills with my family, and your phones don't work very well down there. And it's a great feeling, but it's also a little bit like, am I going to be able to get to where I need to go without the maps? Like, ooh, and then everyone talking about what if this happens and someone doesn't have a phone? It's not like I'm saying we're going to take it away forever. I'm like, just for 45 minutes, see what it feels like to turn that thing upside down and not be bothered by it. And you get to the business world, you kind of have to.
Yeah.
So again, how dare I tell them to do something that isn't relevant to them maybe figuring out how to get a job someday. You can't go in an interview with your cell phone on the counter and answer a text. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like
that doesn't go very well.
that's what I'm saying. So is it foolproof? No. I mean, there's times where people will buck and fight, and I've had kids not take the bonus points and just keep their phone in them, which whatever. I mean, it's your education that you're dictating and changing off of that. But the ones that do, I feel like if you went across the board, they enjoy it.
Yeah. So your classes are legendary for how you prepare for tests and exams. What do you do that are different than other teachers?
It starts with an F, and it's a 3-letter word. I have fun, man. There's no other way to do it. In my humble opinion, fun can attract a lot of positive things. I've seen it in coaching. I've seen it in the business world. I mean, Google, you can go take a nap in a pod. Now that's maybe not so much fun, but like it's different, right? Yeah. It creates something that's different. So this goes back way back when I was a student teacher at Findlay High School in 2003. So kudos to a good friend of mine who's a assistant superintendent down in the Cincinnati area, Brent Wise. He'll probably listen to this, so I need to tell him at the 26-minute mark that I give him a shout out. But so I was teaching world history and economics when I was student teaching, and I wish I could remember what the actual reason was I came up with this, or we did together, but I don't know, other than it was funny, other than it was fun, other than it was creative, I guess. But we came up a way to review for an exam or a test by playing a game that we called Top Gun. And everyone knows Top Gun is the movie. And if you don't love Top Gun, then shame on you, and watch the new one and tell me you're not get a little, teary-eyed, in a couple of those parts of that movie. But it's pretty simple. You answer a question right, you got to throw a paper airplane. And I've mended it throughout the years. I actually just played it yesterday with my freshman class for the first time. It's also one of those that, like, when I explain the rules and tell them, they look at me funny. They're like, and if you can remember the first time, you were probably like, yeah, what are we doing?
Yeah, but it was different. It was actually fun. I mean, everybody was engaged. That's you were actually learning and studying for the exams.
Like, everyone, I think, can kind of attest to being in some form of schooling, and that teacher, that individual that made learning fun. And you almost are open to new things when it's fun and not forced and not threatening. I personally learn better when I'm having fun. I'm more engaged. I'm more involved. My mind is more like, hey, what are we doing? And I think the challenge in a lot of education settings, especially these days, is you can think of some of those classes you were in and the different kind of learners that were in there, right? Like, we did it earlier this week. I have a sport class talking about promotions. You did the promotional plan. It might have been during COVID when you did that one, but a significant plan. And I'm like, think about all the different kind of ideas and thoughts we have in this room. We have 16 people representing 8 different countries and one person from Ohio. Like, how unique and awesome is that? So let's utilize that and keep exploiting it and using it for what it is, which is, let's have fun with this. Let's make it creative. You know what I mean? I don't want to be in a box. I mean, you can probably attest, I am not normal by any means.
You're different from most of the other teachers I've been around.
But that's like who I am as a person too. So I don't want to do things that are normal, right? I get bored easily. For me to stand in front of that group, those kids, for an hour and a half and just blab on about things that I know, shame on me. Maybe my education background is more suited for things to find different ways to get to different kind of learning mindsets. So is throwing a paper airplane in a college class appropriate? Do we do it every day? No, we do it 3 times in a quarter. So it's not like I'm doing it all the time, but you've been out for 5 years and you remember that.
Yeah. It was a different approach to studying for your exams.
Yeah. So you still gotta pull the weight on your end, right?
Yeah. I mean, considering some of the other ones you were sitting in there and just listen to them talk the whole time as you're studying, doing a syllabus in your review sheet. It's like, this was actually fun.
Yeah. And, you know, do I recommend it to everybody? No. But it worked. It worked for me. It worked for what we're doing. You know, are they doing it at Harvard and Yale? I'm highly doubting it. But I think for what UNOH is and the kind of individuals that we have and how much diversity we have in those classrooms, like, you have to find creative ways to get to everybody, or you're going to miss the boat on a lot, right? I mean, the common education and teaching world, right? You have the top 20% of whatever, your organization, your team, your classroom. Those top 20% are going to do what they need to do with or without you. The bottom 20% are going to not do what they need to do with or without you. But it's that middle ones, you know, that's like the sweet spot that you can really kind of be that life-changing experience for and really kind of be impactful, right? And really make a difference. You know, which my humble opinion is why you need to do some crazy things sometimes and have fun. And make it, my number one goal is for them to want to come to class. Right? When they see their schedule or they wake up on a Tuesday, they don't say, I got to go to Mr. Gunner's class. I want them to wake up at 7:30 in the morning and be like, yes, we have Mr. Gunner's class today. That's like my number one goal. So to me, the only way I can accomplish that is to have fun, you know, make it enjoyable, and then like sneak in there the fact that you're actually going to learn something and actually make a difference. And I mean, it's not always easy to do, but I tell you what, on my side, it's way more fun that way too.
Yeah. I mean, when people come to class ready to learn and more talkative and like interactive with everything and trying to actually learn the material, it is a lot funner.
Yeah. I mean, it's more fun in a lot of ways. I mean, it's kind of the same approach I took to playing offensive line. Like I've always been an offensive line coach. I played offensive line my whole life. Like, who wakes up and who has the dreams of watching the draft last night and like, man, can't wait to be the starting left guard of my high school football team. Like, nobody says that. So like, I had to find a way to make being an offensive lineman fun, cool, you know, something that they wanted to do. So I think it all stems back to that kind of mentality. It's that mind shift of like, instead of me standing up there authoritatively slapping my hands or, you know, carrying the big stick, like whoever it was, Teddy Roosevelt or whoever said that back in the day. I can't even remember now. It's probably wrong and people are going to laugh at me, but that's okay. Like, you can't do that. It might work for some of them, right? And there's kind of times in the trick of like, how do I motivate? How do I get them to do what I want? And some are different, but like, everyone likes to have fun, right? Like, that's how we took a team that literally, when we got there in 2009, my first real coaching job, we had 28 kids. And by the time we were out of there in 2017, our roster was over 60. Like, did we start to win? Yeah. Our first 3 years, though, we were 1-9, 2-8, and 4-6, and getting boat raced by the better teams that we played. But like, what could we control? We could control when we had them. We were going to have a bunch of fun, right? We were going to go do things the right way. And eventually, you consistently do that, numbers are going to increase and you're going to win. And next thing you know, we're in the regional semifinals against a team at Donnell Stadium in Findlay, and made the first playoff run in school history and things of that nature. So like, it's that same mentality that I take. Like, I was a mediocre student at best. You know, I think I probably passed classes because of my personality more than actually what I did academically. So like, how dare I sit there in front of them and say, you have to memorize this stuff and regurgitate it on a test or else you fail. Like, that's not all what it's about, though. You know what I mean? So like, having fun, creating that atmosphere, once they kind of buy into it, then you actually can get them to do anything you want, right? Yeah. It's the same. I'm trying to teach a kid to run into somebody as fast and hard as you can. That's not fun. But like, other things are fun. So let's have fun while we can. And then we got to go through the hard stuff together, right? We got to take the test together. You got to write the paper. I didn't make you not write papers, right? That's college. Yeah. But like, if I can kind of trick you into like thinking this is legitimately a cool thing to do, then I got you. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you and Mrs. Etzkorn take a different approach
to getting your students real world experience? What do you guys do?
Easiest answer is we go to the Super Bowl every year. It's way more than that, obviously, but I mean, that's the thing that gets publicized the most about our program. We have gone since, so actually how that all started, if you really want to know, but my first quarter that I taught was the winter of 17. Yeah. The winter of 17. In that class, I had a student, an international student, Juan Gonzalez, who I still talk to today. I actually talked to him the other day. He comes up to me towards the end of January and says, I'm going to miss class for a couple days, Mr. Gunder. And I'm like, okay. You know, I just started teaching in higher ed. I'm like, I don't really know exactly how to handle this. I'm like, okay, where are you going? He goes, I'm actually going up to Minnesota to work at the Super Bowl. I'm like, whoa, that's pretty cool. How the heck did you get that? And like the roundabout way, I had connections from my time at the University of Findlay and some stuff that we had done with the Cleveland Browns and some alumni of our program. Added on to Juan's experience in Minnesota, later found out like, man, we could do this every year, right? Like we got to figure out how to raise the money. Excuse me. But the next year was Atlanta. So I'm like, man, we could drive there. Let's see if any students want to go. So we kind of threw out some feelers. We had, 30 some students say they wanted to go. I'm like, holy crap. This could be a thing, and like volunteer. Now it's become, we actually get paid for part of it. I know, sorry, you didn't get paid when you went to LA, but
yeah, that was just because of the California.
Yeah, exactly. California stupid rules.
Yeah.
Sorry, anyone in California. My brother lives out there. Shame on you. But it's morphed into something bigger now, which again, when you're talking to impact, it started with a cool idea to be like, let's go to the Super Bowl and work. All right, cool. To now, like we have, I think there's 8. It's around 8 students that drove to Green Bay, Wisconsin on their own without any assistance from us other than the contact to get there and be on the shifts and all that stuff. But they took it upon themselves to drive out to Green Bay, Wisconsin and work the NFL draft last night, tonight, and Saturday. So if you want to talk about like culture change, you take higher education as what it is. We have firmly planted experiential learning, which is doing stuff outside of the classroom, a fancy way of that. It's implanted in our program immensely. So we've done things like, so we're just planning on our trip to San Francisco, which will be our 8th trip for the Super Bowl. We went to the women's Final Four in Cleveland last year. We've been to the MLB All-Star Game, which when it was in Cleveland a couple years ago. We've been to the draft a handful of times. We've been to the NCAA men's tournament. We were in Houston a couple years ago, New Orleans before that. And what it's creating is now that some of our alumni are going out into the real world, people are asking the question like, oh, you worked at the Super Bowl? Like, I want to know more about that. And again, how dare I say, the textbook's going to get you hired? It's really not. It's a part of the process to get there, right? You can't get there without it. So don't higher ed people. I'm not saying don't, but like what's being asked upon these kids when they go to interviews and job fairs is about that other stuff. So we've just created that culture. Like that's the expectation. Not everyone takes advantage of it. But the ones that do, not only is it, career changing type stuff, but it's fun. And it honestly allows us, Mrs. Etzkorn and myself, the chance to really get to know these kids. I mean, you literally lived in the house with me for a week.
Yeah. Said it was fun.
Yeah.
I had a blast. I mean, going to Los Angeles with you guys.
But like when people then ask me questions, right? And an employer will reach out and say, tell me about Ryan. Not only can I give them what I know for those, like I said at the beginning, those 4 hours, now I can add something else to that conversation, which I think from your standpoint and mine is impactful, right?
Yeah.
And that's our ultimate goal is how can we help these kids better and, without those things. But then also the cool part is we got to raise money to go. So the students that go every year help us, put on a golf event, which we raise. The first year that we did it, we raised like $4,000, which I was like, holy crap, I can't believe we did this. And then last year was almost $15,000. So like we've progressed and created this monster, if you will, that everyone knows about on campus and in the area. You know, it's in the news. And actually, if anyone goes to a Cincinnati Reds game this year, right? Look at page 187 in the program. One of my ex-students works for a company that does advertising for these programs. And, you know, sports management is on the top corner of the page, and the picture of me at New Orleans with my students is right up there too. So, like,
that's awesome.
You know, stuff like that's meaningful, because honestly, that's what kids should be asking when they go to colleges and visits, right? Like, okay, cool. The content's there, you know, professors are knowledgeable. But like, what else are you doing to separate me from the other thousands that are coming out of here going after jobs, right? Like, a friend of mine works for the Cleveland Gladiators, which is or the Cleveland Monsters, and it's a minor league hockey team, and works in the Cavs organization. You know, he talked to my students a couple weeks ago, and like, he even said, you know, I was in charge of, you know, hiring for an entry-level sales position, and we had over 500 applicants. So like, you tell me, what's getting your resume pulled out of there?
So I can attest for that, because people, when I went and just even looking at coaching positions, they saw that I'd worked at a Super Bowl and volunteered at a Super Bowl and like an NFL draft in Cleveland, and they were hey, come talk to me about that.
Yeah, and it's,
you know,
but honestly, you know, people always like, so what do you do? It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. It allows you to get that resume pulled out and put in.
Yes, and it just gets you that extra time to talk with them, and that's all it was something like that, was to catch their eye.
Yep.
You know, and I mean, that was so different, just even going to them events with you guys. Like, you seen other students there, but you didn't see the professors there with them.
And the ones that do, they don't do anything. Like, I'm literally there with you guys. Like, I'm holding signs. I'm carrying,
working with us side by side and getting to know us, and you know.
And I think it's the same thing in teaching. It's the same thing in education. Like, or the same thing in coaching. Sorry. Like, you know, wrestling. Like, can you imagine a wrestler that gets coached by someone that doesn't know how to wrestle? Like, that's weird, right? So like, how dare I say, go do this when I'm not doing it myself? Like, I tell them, like, I go with you, and I'm standing there for a 12-hour shift with you. I got to get up the next morning at 6 a.m. so we can go to the next one. Like, I'm doing it with you because I understand the impactfulness of this, not because I need a job, but like, it's impactful. Yeah.
And I mean, most people, like, I know, coming from like career world before even going back to school, that the bosses that got dirty with me were the ones I liked a little bit better.
You kind of
not the ones that said, not the ones that said, oh, just go do this and sat there and watched you work, but the ones that actually like, hey, let's do this together.
That authoritarian stand over the top and, you know, point at you. It works for some, but not many. You know what I mean? Like, you almost respect more the ones that are in there in the trenches with you.
Yeah. No, so what is some advice you'd give to high school students getting ready for college?
Oh, man. You know, there's a lot out there about higher education right now. I would challenge you to not listen to the nonsense. If it's meant for you, go into it, right? Don't let anyone force you one way or another. Going to college does not predict your happiness in the next 5 to 10 years, right? However, if it's what you want to do because of fill in the blank, I would say get really strategic about it. Too many times I interact with these kids when they show up and they don't know what they want to do. They chose a college because something silly, like, I'm going to play JV baseball, and they don't even have the major that I want to do. Like, I think you really need to look at the return on your investment, right? The return on your time, which is any good business person will tell you is super smart. So like, really look into a lot of the factors. So like, UNOH, we're special for a lot of reasons. One of the significant is our tuition is significantly lower than almost anybody around. And we're a private institution, and you get one-on-one, hands-on, substantial experience to go along with the academic side. Now, if you're coming to me and say, you know, I think I want to go to med school. Well, UNOH, we're not for you then.
Yeah.
So like, you need to have a very good idea. Like, my daughter is 16, dude. And like, I'm having these conversations with her because I see the other end of it. Like, floating around for 4 years of school in debt, 40 grand, and you don't know what you're doing. Like, right. So like, anyone that I interact with or ask the question, about any of it, athletics. I'm like, what do they want to do? Right? What do you want to do? Well, we don't have that, so you shouldn't come here. Or ours is really good. But like, you could say, this is what we want to do, but like, do I even know how to get there? Like, that's the next step of that conversation. And the only way you know that is if you go talk to and interact with people that are doing it.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, I guess, a roundabout direct way of saying that, other than you better be strategic about that process, because you can't just willy-nilly go be an undecided major anymore, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I see internship postings that require experience. Like, what? You mean I have to have experience to go intern with you?
Yeah. It's getting crazy now.
You know, and like the businesses are driving these things. It's not like higher ed says, you know what, we're going to go ahead and say you have to get to. No, the businesses are saying this is a requirement. So you want to go work for the Cincinnati Reds? Dude, I got the blueprint right here. So like, you better know what that blueprint is before you step foot in it, right?
Yeah.
I don't just jump in a body of water with have a general idea what's in there. That's dangerous. Or how deep it is. Or is it cold? Is it hot? Is it safe? Is it not? Is there an alligator in there that's going to bite me? Like, you better look into it before you just go jump into it, because you can't just do that anymore. Like, you have to have a plan. And you know, Jim Tressel's a great coach, great mentor to Marcus Freeman, who's I follow. Obviously, I'm a big Notre Dame football fan, and you know, he said in a book or at a coaching clinic sometime, I can't remember, but he said a goal without a plan is just a wish. And like, man, I'm not spending that money. I'm not working my butt off to get it paid for and just wishing that it works. Like, you need to have a plan in place of what it's going to look like. Maybe not the whole length of it. I think you have to have a pretty good idea, you know?
Yeah. So I thought one thing that made UNH really special compared to like other universities was because when I went to Ohio State, we had to do all the general electives first.
Yeah.
You guys just started us out in our major. You know, it was completely different, which made things so much easier when you had to go do an English class that you could actually have sports classes with it that made the days a lot more enjoyable.
You know, we're unique. We are unique in that way. It has pluses and it has minuses. I think the big plus is like, you come to UNOH, you're going to be in with me right away, and I'm going to literally give you that blueprint, and you're going to be able to say, yikes, I don't know about this. Or you're going to be like, this is awesome. Right? And I ain't going to dilly-dally with you for 2 years before we have to figure that out. So I feel like that's a big plus. It could be a negative too, because maybe you're not 100% for sure. I personally love it. Right? I really do.
Yeah. What is some advice you give to parents of high school students to get them ready for college?
I think you need to have some very forthcoming, tough conversations with your kids. I'm not going to get on a tangent about parents, dude, because we go way left to center. I think I'm going to just broad stroke this and say I think parents are a lot of the ways scared to have tough conversations with their kids because it might make them upset with you, right? You know, my 16-year-old daughter a couple weeks ago didn't like me very much. And it was because I was having a real honest conversation with her, right? Kids are not developed mentally in their brain yet to make significant decisions. I don't know what the actual thing is, but it's like not till 20 some years old until their frontal lobe is developed for them to make the right decisions. A lot of times I made dumb decisions. So did you.
Yeah, made a lot of them.
If I would have had the thought process now, what's that analogy? Knowing what I know now, what I do then, like, why is that a funny thing, right? Let's help them figure it out because I said
that's what I try to do with anything when coaching is give them my experience. Yeah. I'm trying to let you avoid the same pitfalls I face, trying 100%. To get you to avoid that path and get you on a good path.
So here's the best example I can give. You know, my wife is a first grade teacher. I'm an education person. My daughter thinks the education route is what she's leaning towards. You know, she's 16, she's a freshman. I'm not going to steer her away or towards it. All I can do, and I think every parent needs to do this, is like, I'm going to show you exactly what that means. Right? I'm going to tell you how much money we make. I'm going to tell you how my schedule is. Right? You like going to school with your mother every day? That's because she's a teacher. Right? you like being able to walk to the other side of the building and put your bag before track practice over there. That's because she's a teacher. Normal students without teachers in the building cannot do that.
No.
Right? You like your mother and me and myself being home when you're home? Do you like being able to go and do things just on the whim because we're on summer break? Right? That's great. I have siblings that are not in education and they can do things financially that I can't because of what it provides, financially speaking. So I would tell any parent, be honest, right? Be forthcoming. Don't sugarcoat it. I mean, why sugarcoat it? Tell them exactly what it means. And then if you can create an opportunity for them to experience that before it's real, then do it. Experience is the only way you learn. The only way you actually bring forth the way to kind of figure it out is to go test it out. So create those opportunities, ask people that you know that are in that industry. I don't think I've ever met anyone I've reached out to on a like student's behalf and said, hey, can they come shadow you for a day? I don't think I've ever had anyone say no. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's some great advice. I think more kids need to start shadowing because they don't know what they want to do.
Dude, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah. Like there's a lot of headaches involved with some of the stuff that they don't know about.
And let's be honest, how many people are going to listen to this? I'm not 100% for sure, but but I guarantee a lot of them are like, man, I wish I would have thought about dumb decisions I made at 16 a little bit better. National average, I think in the first 10 years after graduation, people change jobs like 5 times. So you know what happens in those first 10 years after graduation? Student loans, car payments, house payments, marriages, kids, right? How about we make a decision that's going to zigzag my future when I'm 16, 17, 18 before I got a lot of crap on my table. You know what I mean?
Yeah, be a lot smarter. I mean,
it'd be a lot less painful. I can tell you that much as someone who kind of did it myself.
Yeah, I went down that road.
Yeah, I know. And
there's, for it.
There's nothing wrong with it, right? And it works for different people. But like, if we have a chance to really kind of change a direction of someone's life on the better, like, why wouldn't we do that?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So how much has personal development played in your career?
Quite a bit, and something I still work on. I'm 43 and I do stupid stuff still, right? Like it's never going to change, but like until you can kind of, self-evaluate where you're at and what you're doing, like, nothing's going to get better. We're going to go through hard times. You're going to struggle. I don't want to be cliche because I hate it, right? I want to be more real and direct, but like everyone's going to go through tough situations. And it's, again, how you handle those is what's going to dictate a lot of your future. And self-realization, self-guidance. I think pushing yourself to be uncomfortable is very cliche, but also very real, right?
Yeah.
A lot of kids they hate presenting in front of the class. So again, the only way I know how to fix that is make them do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that stems from a lot of adults being scared to do this exact same thing, though, that they're scared to step out of their comfort zone. So their kids aren't going to do it either,
complacency is the devil of growth, right?
Yeah.
It's the anti-growth, being complacent. And in the 8 years that I've been at UNOH, I've found myself being complacent sometimes. So I'm like, no, I got to snap out of it and be like, okay, I got to go do something to push me to a limit or a place that I don't really want to go, to allow me to get a little bit better and to be a better, instructor, to be a better, I just went through a promotion process in higher ed, which anyone that does that knows it's lengthy. It's not much fun. A lot of self-realization, a lot of self-pointing at yourself. I kind of pushed it away for a couple of the rounds that I could do it, and almost kind of like, one day I had the realization, like, what the hell? Why? Oh, sorry. What in the world am I doing? Like, why wouldn't I want to do this? Because it's uncomfortable and time consuming? Like grow up, dude. Like, let's do this. Ended up getting it. So now I'm an assistant professor, which is cool. But like that, sometimes looking at yourself in the mirror in that way it's a good thing to do. Yeah,
I completely agree. I get complacent at times, and then I have to go get out of it by just doing something like that everybody thinks I'm crazy for doing, just like chasing something just crazy. But it's like, well, that's what I feel like I'm supposed to do because I need to grow.
I'm right with you, man. And again, I'm super proud of you for stepping out of your comfort zone and doing this. Even. Like,
Yeah,
sometimes it can be a lot. Again, I think you need to be strategic about how and when to make that work. You can't just jump into it, or else it's not going to work. Those that are strategic about those changes or those kind of self-realizations, I think, have better success.
Yeah. So what are some of your short-term and long-term goals?
Oh boy. Short term's a little bit more difficult for me, dude. I got, kids that are very involved at a very age where like a lot's going on. So like short term for me, I think is to, personally and professionally for that matter, is just to continue on the trajectory involved in the life-changing type experiences and stuff that I've been involved with up to this point, and keep them going in the direction that I want. And it's not a complacency thing. It's definitely, it takes effort to get to that point, but like, keep going to the Super Bowl and finding out new things that we can get exposed to, keep finding ways to help the international student population that we have because of the dynamics going on in our world right now. To keep trying to push myself to get out there and be more involved on campus, to keep finding ways to be more involved, in the community that I live, but also in the community that I work, and maybe Northwest Ohio, and things of that nature. I think are always things that I want to look into. Just joined a group at our local YMCA to help with some youth sports stuff. Mainly because I'm a big proponent that youth sports right now are in danger of becoming nothing that they were ever intended to be, which could be another topic of a conversation someday. Yeah. But, trying to put myself out there to be a little bit more advocating for things that I think that I can change and I have knowledge of is always something short-term. Long-term, I think still for me, it's just, be a good dad, be a good husband, are things that I'm always trying to work for personally, professionally. Again, I think it's kind of the same line. Like, I don't ever see myself doing a whole bunch of administrative type things. That's just not me. I'm very much a better assistant coach than I am a head coach. So like, still trying to make sure my daughter is to get pointed in the right direction as she goes through some monumental changes that are happening as a 16-year-old and, finding out college and, the real world type stuff. And my boys who are 13 and 11, dealing with them. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on in my world right now, and trying to stay in the right path for that, I think, is a good goal for me.
It's very self-aware of you, though, to recognize that you're not the administrative type to be a head coach.
I mean, I went after a head coaching position a couple years ago. It didn't work out. Might have been for the better. But yeah, I think sometimes if you know what you're best at, stay in that lane.
I think I've realized that to myself. Like the one year I was in Tennessee, that like I love coaching, but wrestling isn't my entire life anymore. It was like, it wasn't what it was too much like work, being the head guy and like having to handle everything. It was like, I'd much rather be the one-on-one person with them, helping them out that way, Yeah.
And I think some self-realization is finding that lane.
Yeah.
And sticking into it,
Yeah. What is one book you would recommend for personal development or mindset?
The Law of Value. I think I mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
I'm going to be dead honest with everybody here, and you might think I'm crazy. I'm not a big reader. I've read books. It's not something I do consistently. Maybe it's my personality. Maybe it's some version of, short-term attention span, whatever you want to call it. But I did read the Law of Value book, which I think goes back to a lot of the reasons I do the things that I do, where like, I truly believe if you do enough right things and good things for people, you will get that back in return and that value back to you eventually. So I don't even know who wrote it. Maybe you can look it up and add it to your little blurb that you put on here, to be honest with you. I got the book, I think, in my car, but like, I read it a while back, and it kind of changed. It was a big shift of my mentality.
Awesome. So how can people get a hold of you, especially the parents that want to maybe send their kids to UNOH? People want to support the sports management program.
Sure. I mean, we have a golf event coming up in September.
Yeah,
end of
definitely give me
September.
all the information for that when you guys get all the flyers and everything, and I'll post on my social
Yeah, I would
and
love
everything for that to
any
try to help
involvement in
raise
that.
money.
Yeah, all that money goes to students and our trips and trying to make their, their personal growth of being in college better. Honestly, like you can look me up. My social media handles are Prof Gunder, ProfGunder on all of them. Give me a follow, shoot me a message. I'd be happy to answer questions about higher ed and the process of enrollment management and everything that kind of goes along with it, including athletics. I mean, I was a scholarship athlete, dealt with it a lot at the University of Findlay, deal with it now in NAI at UNOH. So like that's a good topic that I can kind of touch base on. I coached Luke Montgomery and went through his process of now he's at Ohio State and starting guard for them, national champion, which is crazy. So I kind of seen every level of that. And you can obviously look up UNOH Sport Management on all social media. Our Instagram account is probably the most popular one where we put the things that we do and the trips that we go on. You're on there, dude, somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are probably the easiest. You can obviously look up my email on UNOH's website. But anyone that ever have a question about that sort of stuff, I'm happy to help. Like I get enjoyment out of helping people. Like it fills my cup, if you will.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to thank you for taking this time with me,
dude,
and answering questions. I mean, you definitely had a very huge impact on me, and I'm going to do a follow-up on this, like tell my story and how you impacted me on another episode. So
I love it, and super proud of you, man. Keep challenging yourself and pushing a little bit. We all have our, stuff that we go through. So kudos to you for sticking with it. And, like I told you the other day, that I've always wanted to be on a podcast. I've always kind of thought doing a podcast would be fun. So this is my first one. So awesome. I don't know what's going to happen. And hopefully your views go skyrocketing because of my craziness and crazy ideas. And hopefully some teachers play some Top Gun later. I can give you the rules. But, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. And, for anyone listening, if someone would have told me 20 years ago, or even when I was in education, I'd be a college professor someday, I would have laughed in your face. So like, don't let the shit you go through get in your way, like push through it. You never know what's going to happen. Relationships absolutely matter. So harness them, nurture them. Cause you never know. You really don't, honestly. Like so much of my life is like crazy to even think that it's happening. Like you joke. I mean, I couldn't even imagine when I first met my wife that she'd eventually marry me and have kids with me someday. Like it's crazy. I'd be like, yeah, right. So like so much of it's just nuts to think about. But if you work hard enough, make the right connections, build the right relationships, anything can happen. So kudos to you, man. Keep plugging away. And obviously if I can ever help you, shoot me a message or reach out.
Definitely. Any way I can help the program and all them kids, let me know.
Appreciate that. I'll send you a message when we get ready to do the sponsorships for the golf outing. So
perfect.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Hey, thank you guys. Hey guys, remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.
That's right, buddy. See ya.